Thanks for staying with us right here on Morning at 10 TV. Before going for a break, I did tell you I have a very pertinent conversation with the ED for the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, and that is none other than Julius Mukunda. We want to talk about the resistance against the proposed amendments to the Public Finance Law or Act of 2015 that would allow the Uganda National Oil Company to actually retain most of the proceeds from the petroleum revenue in that regard. They would only go ahead and use most of that money accrued from the oil and only give back the balance to the petroleum fund, meaning they do not want Parliament to appropriate a budget for them. They just want to use that money and at the end of the day tell Parliament, oh, this is the balance that we actually are left with and we're just going to put it in the petroleum fund. Julius Mukunda is here to tell us what would be, the sum of the ramifications of actually letting this take center stage, and also a lot more is going to be discussed right here with him. Very good morning.
Good morning.
Indeed, Julius Mukunda, this is a cause of concern, isn't it?
Yeah, a serious cause of concern.
But bring us up to speed with how it all started.
It all started because we have to sell oil. That's a fact.
Indeed.
So we have a company that is going to help us transport oil in the pipeline.
Uganda National Oil Company.
Uganda, it's called ECOP, the ECOP company.
Yes.
So Uganda National Oil Company represents us in that company. So we have 15%. So in order for it to do business, it must have money to pay the operational cost of running that company, its share. So as such, they have decided and said, since our business is oil, therefore we should have a mandate to sell oil to run the company. That is perfectly okay, because that's the business that they do. And that they are saying that because of the appropriation difficulties, the process here is so cumbersome, it will be difficult for them to always come to access money and go and do their operations. That one is also understood, because it's business. You need always to have money to run. They call them cash calls. So to solve that, they are saying that the oil we are selling, remember the oil where we have based our future, is that they intend to sell that oil at source, because the current law is saying you must first bring all the oil money into the petroleum fund. After that, then Parliament would appropriate and say, okay, this amount of money is going to be paid for
operations.
Just like
we are doing with the MDAs and other government parastatals.
And other parastatals, to address our priorities as a country.
Indeed.
So UNOC is saying that, no, that is going to be a bit of a challenge. We need to first spend
the money from the source.
On the source, then the balance can be brought back to the petroleum fund. Now, that's why we have a contention.
All right.
Why do we have a contention? Our history as a country of all our public entities is that we are not very prudent in managing public money. And whoever is there, because if you start from Civil Aviation Authority, you go to Uganda Railways Corporation, where we have recently bought to the
inflated trains
that can't fit. I mean, but I think for me the most important part is that this oil resource is so significant for us that if we mismanage it, then
at the starting level,
then everything goes wrong. So what we are saying right now, so the amendment is saying, one, we are going to define what petroleum revenue is. Petroleum revenue is...
Before you go to defining petroleum revenue, what would actually go wrong if they actually go through with this, allowing UNOC to retain this petroleum revenue?
So what would go wrong is this, is that there is no cap of the amount of money UNOC is supposed to use.
I see.
Although they are telling us that this money is only for the transportation tariff, transporting the crude oil, but also the 15% shareholding we have. If that was true, then it should have been put in this public finance management bill to avoid any excessive expenditure that is not required. And we know well that in this country, if I give you a blank check because I trust you so, at the end of the day, if I say that I am going to give you, to support your educational needs, it means that I will pay your shoes, your socks, your scholastic materials, plus tuition fees. But if I say I'm going to meet your tuition fee, I will only wait for a bank slip. And I think that is what is missing in this particular bill, that although we so much want to support UNOC to operate very well, that we have no limit of how much they are supposed to spend. So they have a limit of spending everything. They can even spend more than they have, and they will come to the consolidated fund and will give them more money. So that's what we don't want. But we have a solution to that. And I think that's what people are not understanding. We have a solution to that. We are saying that Uganda Revenue Authority, according to the law, is mandated, can actually spend at source when it collects money. But there are two serious safeguards under that. And that's what we are telling UNOC to do. One, you can only spend at source if you have a minister's authorization.
I see.
Number two, you can only spend at source on only those items appropriated by Parliament. And I don't know why people don't want to do that. That would still give UNOC the authority to run business. Although the accountants are telling us that it is very wrong if you do not recognize your income. It's extremely that you must first recognize the income before you spend it.
Julius, do you think this is a ruse to actually steal this money?
Come again?
Do you think this is a ruse to steal this money by members of UNOC or government or whoever is fronting these proposals or amendments? How do you even allow a government parastatal to... It's like telling an investigator, please investigate yourself. People died, okay, and you are the police now. You go and investigate yourself. It doesn't make any sense.
I think this is going to be very dangerous in terms of saving the only resource that we have in this country. That if you look around all the national oil companies across Africa, by the way, don't go very far. They are all in problems. All of them in a problem because it is too much money that they are unable even to manage it. So they begin misusing the resources.
I see.
So if you don't have those strong oversight safeguards on how money is supposed to be used, then you are breeding ground for misuse, if not outright theft. Somebody will come and tell you, by the way, we cannot account for $1 trillion worth of barrels of oil. How would you know that? You won't. But we are saying, if you have a strong oversight, and that the only oversight as citizens of Uganda we have is Parliament. If you don't have that, then your oil money is going to go. But most importantly also is that I have told the Parliament, if you approve that law the way it is, you are legislating away your appropriation authority.
I see.
Completely, and also because they will be spending money at source. In any case, they are saying here that their plans and budgets will be approved by their board and the cabinet, not Parliament. So we are saying we understand the role of UNOC. We understand the complication of business, but we want those safeguards to be there so that we know that the oil money, where everything in this country is best, where the future of this country is best in terms of reducing our debt to GDP ratio, in terms of constructing the highways we want, in terms of doing anything, that we must have a strong oversight on this particular bill. And I'm telling my honorable members of Parliament and UNOC itself and the government that there is already a model which is working very well. Let us do it. Everybody will be happy. It is a win-win situation.
Let's break down the four clauses you were talking about.
So the first one, of course, is they want to redefine petroleum oil revenue. What does that mean? The current law is that everything and anything around oil is that anything around oil that generates money, anything that gets money from oil is called petroleum oil revenue, and that's understood. The bill seeks to say we are refining it. Everything from oil is going to be oil except crude oil.
Indeed.
They are saying crude oil is not oil revenue. And we are wondering if crude oil, the sales from crude oil, is not going to be called petroleum revenue, what are we going to call it anyway?
Meaning we would never know the proceeds of that money.
So we don't know.
If they are to sell that crude oil, please don't ask for it because it's not part of the revenue.
It's not part of revenue. So that's you can see that. The second, of course, is spending at source.
Yes.
The third one is that any balance the balance will be
put in the petroleum fund.
We don't know how much balance that one is going to be. And the fourth one is, for purposes of clarity, that the investment plans and budgets of UNOC will be approved by UNOC board and cabinet. And our biggest problem
is... No parliament anywhere.
No parliament is not anywhere, because this is public money. And I was challenging...
And you need oversight.
And I was challenging my honourable members of parliament. When did you appropriate money for Uganda Civil Aviation Authority?
I see.
When do you appropriate money for New Vision? When do you appropriate money for, these other parastatals? They don't, because these are companies. They run a different model. So UNOC is also going to run a different model of arrangement. But they are going to use the public money. So it is very important that you can't say that our investments are going to be approved by somebody else, not parliament. If they were not going to use public money, I can understand that. But using oil, where we are basing our future on, parliament must get involved. And people are saying, no, you can't have parliament involved. You only appear in the parliament once to bring your plan and budget, unless you say it will not be there. But you only appear once in parliament and say, this is my plan and budget for approval. If your plan is so secretive, it contains so much of security, parliament already has a model of approving what we call classified expenditure. And I think there is nothing as secretive as classified expenditure.
Are these some of the signs that we are headed for trouble, Julius Mukunda? Mainly because when it comes to purposes of oversight, you do have NGOs that have been operating in this country. Recently, government, courtesy of the finance ministry, they muted a plan. They said, you know what? Gone are the days when, an NGO would just start a project without, parliamentary approval. Now, for money to come to this country from a donor, it would first have to go through government. Ministry of Finance, it goes through Parliament, and then Parliament decides, okay, NGO X, Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, you want to, expedite some campaigns in areas of Kasese and Bundibujo, then you go to Parliament. You tell them, this is my project. You spell it out for them, and then they decide whether or not to give you money from your funder for you to go ahead with your operations. So we are wondering if government is going through all this trouble with the NGOs for purposes of, streamlining the NGOs and, offering oversight over what they are doing. What is stopping us from actually shining a light on what UNOC is doing? Why do they want to keep us in the dark?
I think for me is that for this purpose is that I don't think even UNOC knows the dangers it has, that it is going to face.
Indeed.
Probably. But I think there are people who are behind it, who are pushing it, and we don't know. But what they are pushing is very, very dangerous, because money is going to get lost, and it will be UNOC to account for that particular money. When Nakalema is speaking people, it will start at the UNOC offices.
I do understand.
So these proposals we are making are in the best interest of UNOC.
Indeed.
Because when anything goes wrong, there will be the ED, there will be all the top management, the board, they will be the ones who are going to be paraded. And remember, we are debating the bail, that bail should not be given.
Indeed. So and these are the people President Museveni is
they should
corrupt
be
government officials.
They should be interested.
Julius Mukunda is the Executive Director for the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. We're going to go for a break. When we return, he's going to be interesting us with some information pertaining to whether there are signs showing any trouble ahead of the horizon as we move ahead with this journey. We'll be right back.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Your Fridays shall never be the same again.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your girl, Itania, the life of the body.
And my name is Doug and Ice. Now listen, man. Every single Friday, nobody brings the party like we do.
That's why we are the NTV Mix Show, featuring the one and only DJ Brian, Fem DJ, DJ Dash, on a disco way.
From celebrating reggae music to celebrating Ugandan music, hip-hop and R&B, we blow up issues like nobody does. Let's bounce.
Wind the week down on the DJ Mix Show this Friday at 10 p.m., where the party never stops.
ITEL. Enjoy better life.
All right. right, welcome back and many thanks for staying with us right here on the number breakfast show in the country, morning at NTV. Let's shine a spotlight on our sponsors, that is ITEL, You Listen, and also Inspire Africa Coffee. They've done a lot for us right here and they are offering very immense, and profitable services. Please do go clamor for those services being fronted by ITEL, Inspire Africa Coffee, and the You Listen app for purposes of continued learning. Away from that, I still do have Julius Mukunda, the ED for the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. They are part of the stakeholders voicing their concerns or resistance or disagreement of, proposals to, the Public Finance Act of 2015 that would allow Uganda National Oil Company to tap into the proceeds of the petroleum revenue and keep some of that money and only give the balance to the petroleum fund. They are saying that is only the beginning of the oil curse in Uganda. Julius Mukunda, signs on the horizon that we are headed for disaster. Are there some of them?
I was one person who was not really interested in oil.
Indeed.
But, people keep on convincing and say, look, this thing must get out. I remember there was a Ghanaian colleague who came in town and said the best thing to deal with it, leave it there. But, you can't really sit on a resource and keep on looking at it. Indeed. That would be not the right thing. But how do we get it out in a way that you can actually benefit from it? And I think for me, these are the troubling signs.
Indeed.
Is that if we want to get it out, we must make sure that we have, from examples across the world, we must make sure that we are prepared to benefit from it. You see, already, you have 15% of ECOP on the ECOP company. An indication that we don't have enough money to invest in the oil sector throughout.
Indeed.
We have little. The only thing we have are the reserves, is the crude oil. But the infrastructure to sell it, we don't.
Meaning we already have a bad deal.
And yeah, we already have a bad deal. But how do we ensure that
even the little we are getting is not misused?
Can reach us? You see, that's the most important part.
Indeed.
So for that to reach us, you need to make sure that we have very serious safeguards. And I have told, even I have said, look, I understand you need to pay for the costs of this company, your 15% share. You must pay for it. If there is $100 to pay, Uganda will pay 15%, $15. You also need to pay your transportation tariff. They will be charging us $12.7 per barrel, for example. We must pay from that, and we can only pay from the oil that we have. I understand that. But to ensure that there is no room for misuse, either we put that in the law and say that the oil to be spent, the amount of money to be spent will not exceed the charge that is going to be imposed on us. And these are the charges. One is the transportation tariff, two is the 15% share that we have, the costs. But to say that you want to do it all, then it's an indication that you are actually creating a room for misuse. And that's why the oil curse starts from people. The oil curse is not anything else, but it's about the misusing of resources. So that's what you are saying. And I think the other important element we also need to understand is that the nature of oil business is very volatile. $25, $12, it goes down, it goes up. So you need your company to get prepared to engage in that particular business. I understand that. Already the government had given UNOC a subvention grant, a subvention fund. Subvention in the government means that they will it was a vote, which means that every quarter you have to get money. But Ministry of Finance, understanding that the operations of UNOC are different and unique, they give them a subvention, which meant that they give you money at once. You use your own internal control and policies as UNOC to spend it. You don't go through the complicated process of procurement of government, which was a good measure. But if they still feel that is not enough, there are other mechanisms you can use. I have talked of URA, which has got safeguards. But still, we can go to Bank of Uganda and say, Bank of Uganda, give us a guarantee that UNOC will be able to meet its obligations. So that as we collect money from oil on a petroleum fund, we are able to pay back.
I see.
The most important part is, let us first collect the money it comes on a petroleum fund. Once it comes there, then that's when you can spend it. It has a number of advantages. Two of them is that once you have, let's say you receive $100 million on your account. Let me tell you, your debt to GDP ratio would just, it improves tremendously. Instead of 50%.
But if you're remitting only the balance.
But if you are remitting only, if it is there anyway, then your issues around debt still remain.
Indeed.
But also it gives the right cash position of a country.
For proper expenditure.
For proper expenditure. Because you are not going to be there waiting, how much will you remit? How much will, no, you are not doing that one, no.
And then you're going to plan over balance.
So you plan because you know that cash is coming in at that particular moment. People are saying we shouldn't mix because already the money that is going to come in is already money that is going to be spent anyway. It is okay. But we have recognized this money in our book as money that has entered into the country and is in our books. In any case, when money is in our books, I'm telling you, I was telling colleagues and say, when you have an account in a bank and you are bringing in 30 million per month, even if that 30 million is money owed to somebody else, the way that bank treats you, first, you access better interest rates. Second, you're one of their privileged customers. But if that 30 is not coming in, you line up like the rest of the people.
Indeed. So
we are saying for purposes of prudent public finance management and for purposes of ensuring that UNOC is not in trouble, let them change the law to show, one, that you can only spend at source only when the minister has authorized it, but also on only items appropriated by Parliament. That is a clean slate. That is a win-win situation.
What about changing their version or definition of petroleum revenue?
That is ridiculous. Really. If you don't want to call it petroleum revenue, okay, give us a name that you want to call it, and then maybe we can understand it. But we will not need to go there if that is done. If that is done, if we are able to say a URI model is going to be done here, then we shall not need all these other amendments. They will not be necessary. These are other amendments. But going through these, let me tell you, you are creating agitation for nothing. In any case, we know that the eco bill on the other side is managing all other difficult things because the other bills really are extreme. Those ones, they are in extremes because if you look at the fiscal regime that they have given the company that is going to run in this country, you wonder what is happening. But to me, is that one, that if we want oil resources to benefit us, then it's quite important that we put very stringent oversight on how it's going to be appropriated.
I see.
Providing a blank check, we're in trouble.
Mr. Julius Mukunda, what else are you opposed to in the proposed amendments to the Public Finance Management Bill? Of course, the other thing is we want the role of Parliament of appropriation to remain strong. Indeed.
And as such, if by saying that your reports, your investments are going to be approved by somebody else but not Parliament, we find that one that you are weakening the appropriation process. Because for us citizens, we only receive accountability majorly from Parliament. If I want anything that is happening in this country, I know it will start from Parliament. When Parliament demands it, it will come. It is difficult for me as an ordinary citizen to demand, for example, look at the oil agreements, for example. You can hardly access them. And I really I support members of Parliament for asking, let us have these agreements, we look at them. Probably that's the one where I can also access. So it's very important that Parliament, I have so many disagreements with Parliament, but also I have so many agreements with them. So for me is where I find that an institution like Parliament is weakened, I get worried. So I want that the reports, the plans, the investments, plans and budgets must be approved by Parliament.
According to some economic experts, they are not worried about this deal entirely by UNOC in isolation. They're saying it might, if we give UNOC the leeway, it might offer a bad precedent where other government parastatals and companies also say, we want, also to handle our own budgets. Do you think this might set a bad precedent where other entities also come out and say, we want to handle our own budgets?
You see, already appropriation aid, spending money at source, has been repeated by government. We use it to pay passport fees. You go to the passport office, you pay money, and then they give you a passport. Driving license, driving license, and all the other government services. But they said no. Universities, you go to university and pay at the bank on the account of on the bank account.
Yes.
All that ended. Why? Because government wanted to accept that even districts, by the way, local revenue, because the government wanted to ascertain its cash position and reduce misuse. So that was stopped. Now, if you started this, let me tell you, don't be surprised. I will be behind you. I will be behind some of these companies whom I think they're also very important. So no, they can start spending at source. It's going to create a very, very bad precedent. If you spend at source, it means that we are not recognizing your income and we don't know what you are doing with your income.
Indeed.
And if you look at NTR, by the way, the non-tax revenue of government, we used to collect like 100 billion, but as of now we are in millions, but now we are in billions in terms of collecting NTR, because we are collecting it at source and it is taken back. We also have a precedent where companies were collecting NTR, they were spending at source. At the end of the year, they had so much money that they didn't know how to use it. So what do they do? They order for vehicles. Everybody in the company will be having a vehicle. So we don't want those instances. But I can say, for me, is I understand UNOC. I understand its operations. I don't want it to be held and it makes losses. I don't want it to default. Because if it defaults on its obligation, that it's going to be charged with interest. I don't want that. But at the same time, I don't want it to be in trouble because it is misusing resources. Nobody is doing the oversight. And as such, let them agree and say, we will bring our plans to Parliament once a year. Parliament is going to approve. We can spend at source when we want, but on items that have been approved by Parliament. I don't want them to start spending on items, increasing their salaries, paying themselves bonuses, buying new vehicles, doing these businesses that don't bring any returns to us. And then we are here again, raising noise about how they are misusing our resources.
Indeed. No, what other recommendations are you putting forward for these, for UNOC and the other stakeholders involved?
No, by the way, the other part also is, for us, this engagement has given us one idea. One is, for the first time, we are seeing a government institution actually coming out to meet and defend its position.
I see.
Usually, people run away. They say everybody's running away, and I commend them really. We have met them. Petroleum Authority also, we have really been able to interact. And the interaction has not been you people. No, people have been able to listen to our idea and have also been to listen to them. And I think for me, I think it's very important that if I'm disagreeing with you, let's sit on the table and debate objectively. And I think that's what is very important. That must be done. Yes.
All right. We cannot negate the importance or significance of parliamentary oversight in that regard when it comes to streamlining the activities of the government, MDAs, and also government parastatals in that regard, so that money is not misused or it does not fall in the wrong hands in that regard. We shall continue to watch that space and bring you more details as they continue to come in, especially if the government officials have their way and they tweak the law to allow UNOC to actually spend money at the source. Yes, Julius Mukunda would have to come back here and we make more noise over this. Thank you very much for coming through, Julius Mukunda. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to hear.
Indeed. Yes. All right. You're still watching Morning at NTV. Andrew Kagwa is already here. Our artists have been disrespected one too many times in the international coffers. When our artists go to Nigeria, there is this contestation over the Afrima Awards. Yes, nominees were not well taken care of in around